Hello, my fellow monks, and welcome back to another video with the Monkey Scenting Sensei. And today I'll be talking about one of my favorite albums of all time that I own on vinyl, otherwise known as a perfect Zen. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe and comment. Hit that bell notification if you want to be notified of more of my videos that I upload to the channel. And if you are new to this channel, what a perfect Zen is my version of a greatest of all time, or some of my favorite albums of all time. So I've done albums like Sum 41 Does Look Infected, and I've done Red Hot Chili Peppers, Californication, two of my favorite albums that I grew up listening to and I still have so much affection for to this day. And as you can already tell by looking at my wall, we'll be talking about Pearl Jam's 1992 album, Versus. Yes, this baby came out in 1992. I started listening to this album back in 2011. Actually, when this pressing came out on vinyl, I actually had bought this on CD. I was not aware of the vinyl resurgence that was going on in the late 2000s, early 2010s. It's still kind of going on to this day. But about a year or two ago, I went into my local Barnes & Noble, and they had this sitting on the shelf in the P section, and I picked it up. And I'm sure as hell glad I did. And now you'll notice I kept the hype sticker on here. It says Pearl Jam's Versus, vinyl edition, 180 gram audiophile vinyl. Features the hits Go, Daughter, Animal, Dissonant, and more. And by more, they definitely mean more, because this album is packed to the hilt with amazing songs. Spoiler alert, there's not a bad song on this record in my opinion. Every song is great, it just flows so perfectly. Now, before I talk about the record itself, I really wanted to open up the record and really show you guys what we get with the packaging on this, as I always do in my videos. So of course you get this amazing cover of the sheep looking out the fence. Now, my one complaint with the vinyl version of this album is the fact that they used a different shot of the sheep. If you look at the CD cover, and I'll put a picture of it right here, it looks pissed off, it looks angry. The whole motif, the whole vibe of this album is pissed off aggression. This album is so aggro in most of the songs and the lyrics that it's just, that cover exemplifies what this album is. Now compare that to this cover, where it looks like the sheep is just kind of looking for some carrots or looking for some food to eat. So you get the top, and then you get the bottom, which is the same on the CD. Has the same backing and everything. It has the track listing, but on the vinyl version, it has side 1 and side 2. And what I love about this record too is that there's 12 tracks, so you get a nice even 6 and 6. And if anyone knows me, they know that I love consistency on a record. I love when a record has the same amount of tracks. To look at the early Beatles recordings, they had 7 and 7. I just love when they can do that and it's very consistent. It really helped my OCD, alright? It really does, make me feel good. Opening up the gatefold, we get an amazing picture of the guys. It looks like they're in the studio just rehearsing the tracks. And again, I like how dark the pictures are. It just really adds to the mood of the album. Let's see, you got, I think it's Eddie Vedder there. You got Stone Gossard. You got Mike McCready. Let's see, yeah, okay. You got the guy who I can't pronounce his last name. All great musicians in their own craft. And then delving into the inside, if I can get it out, before I show off the record, because it's really nothing special, I'm going to show you guys the inner sleeve that it comes with. Now, on the CD, you get an actual booklet that you can flip through. That's one of the advantages to a CD, that you can get, you get a giant book. But with the record, you still get the gist of the CD booklet, essentially. So you have these amazing pictures, which again add to the theme of the record. You have this weird, looks like some kind of African, like indigenous mask, maybe. And then you have a dark forest, looks like some out of Blair Witch. And then you have just a desolate forest. And then you have, looks like the band members are standing near a fire, like you can see their shadows. That's pretty much it. And on the other side, you get the amazing handwritten lyrics. Now, this is something out of the Neil Peart playbook, like the handwritten lyrics. I love when artists will include that on some kind of book or liner notes. It adds so much personality to what the product you already bought. So while you listen to the record, you can look at the lyrics. And it means a lot more to me if they're handwritten, because it shows that the person actually put work and effort into what they were writing, as opposed to just doing it on a computer or, you know, having someone else do it like they do with a lot of stuff today where you have like 5 writers for one song. And then getting into the record, has the orange Legacy label. Of course, 33 1/3 RPM, normal speed. Comes with this really nice paper sleeve that has a little plastic inner to protect the record. I need to clean my record a little bit. I haven't had a chance to do that yet. I gotta buy some more cleaner. But here's side 1. Again, beautiful, 180 gram. Didn't come in warped when I bought it, luckily. Side 2, same deal. You have the other 6 tracks. You also get some calf fur on that too. The calf fur comes for free. You don't have to pay for it. So before this album, Pearl Jam actually had released 10, their big multi-platinum selling debut back in 1991. 1991 was a big year for grunge. You had Alice in Chains, you had Soundgarden with Bad Motorfinger had come out that same year, and of course Nirvana's Nevermind, which is one of my personal favorite albums of the 90s and pretty much changed everything. But right behind Nevermind, I'd say Pearl Jam's 10 is a close second. But in my opinion, Versus is the heavier album, and perhaps the heaviest album Pearl Jam would ever make in their full-on 30-plus year career as a group. I would consider Go and Animal the best 1-2 punch in 90s music history. As soon as that record is put on, and you hear the dissonant guitar chords, and then you hear the bass, and then the drums kick in, you hear that, and you know you're in for something. And then you hear the drummer in the background hitting the sticks together, and then and then it just turns into this huge metal punk song. Now you got to think, back in the 90s, a huge mainstream album would not open with a punk song like that. It just wasn't done, and it wasn't something that was normal. But Pearl Jam were just in a headspace where they wanted to write a heavy-ass song and a heavy freaking record. The lyrics, it's like frustration of like, don't go, don't leave me, I'm not this bad person you think I am. And it just screams of frustration and anger. And I love the solos in it, the drumming. It's just so speedy and aggro throughout. It doesn't stop there. The next song, Animal, is the same kind of deal. Comes in, heavy riff, great drum beat behind it. Just the beat on this song is it's very fast paced. It keeps up the momentum from Go. Before we get too aggro and heavy, the album slows down a little bit with the track Daughter. Now, this is one of Pearl Jam's biggest singles. It's one of my personal favorite songs from them. It's a really pretty acoustic number. And what I love about it is the lyrical content. It's just a great song about a woman who grows up. She doesn't really know who she is. She doesn't know where she fits in. And she might have some kind of mental condition, like the song hints to. Like she tries to listen to what her mother's telling her, but she doesn't really understand it. She might have some kind of issue. And then she grows up not being able to fit in and not knowing where she fits in as the society at large. And as the song progresses, you just get more of the story of the girl and what she's went through as she grows up to be a woman. And after Daughter, you get one of the more satirical but also very serious track in Glorified G. Now, this track in particular is about gun culture and how you're being a big man by having a gun. And I love the line where Eddie sings, "I got a gun. In fact, I got 2. But it's okay, man, because I love God." One of the best opening lines in any song, in my opinion. Whether you agree with the Second Amendment or whatever or not, I just love Eddie's take on gun culture and how people like hold guns to a high standard as much as they hold religion to a high standard. That's one of the things I love about Pearl Jam, is that they're not afraid to write really angry and controversial lyrics that might get them in trouble. Look at them in the future. They had a war with Ticketmaster. They had a war on George W. Bush. in the early 2000s. Like they weren't afraid to be controversial like other acts were in their time. 5G, we go to Dissident. Now this song opens with an excellent hard rocking riff, but then transitions to very soft lyrics about just someone taking a woman, I'd assume, taking someone in, taking care for them, and the boyfriend in the background kind of being unsure if he should trust her or not with this guy while he's taking care of them. And then I feel like it escalates into something that just becomes a disaster towards the end of the song. The way Eddie sings on this track is amazing. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet from this album is Eddie's voice. He is just shrieking and screaming up a storm. His singing is great. I know a lot of people like to make fun of Eddie Vedder's voice because he does have that kind of raspy, kind of hunger dunger dang kind of voice, but in his prime, in these first couple of records, like first like 3 Pro Jam records or so, like that sweet spot from 91 to 94, he was at the top of his game. And he can still sing really well to this day, but he's kind of gotten more of a elder statesman role as the band has grown up and they're at their 30 plus year point in their career. They've really grown up, and Eddie Vedder's voice has really grown to suit his role in the band. But getting back to Dissident, I love this song. It's heavy, but also very soft and somber at the same time. Very much peaks and valleys. This album's really good at doing, at least with the ballads, very much, they're not just ballads, with the exception of 2 songs that are straight up ballads, I would say. But everything else has peaks and valleys. Essentially, this song is about being born with white privilege and police brutality. It's a very lyrically dense song, and you wouldn't think that behind the musicality of it. It starts with these very somber bongo drums that start and go throughout the whole entire song. Actually, the whole song is this kind of smooth African drum beat. It isn't until you start hearing the lyrics you're like, oh, okay. So he's got the African drum beat. It matches the theme of the lyrical content and what's going on in the story. And I love the part where he's talking about the policeman, because the song was actually supposed to be titled Policeman initially. If you look on the lyric sheet, it actually says Policeman in the subtitle. And I love one of the lines where Eddie is saying, so clean cut, dirties his hands, it comes right off. So essentially like how a police officer, especially, back then, could do just nasty things and get away with it just because he was white and had a badge. This song actually wasn't one of my favorites either. Whenever I listen to the album, I didn't ever skip this song, but I always thought it was my least favorite, and I thought it was a weak track on the album. But now that I've gotten older, and in light of recent events that have happened in 2020 and going forward, this song has even more meaning now, I feel, than it did back then. You flip the record over, and the first song that comes up is the track Blood, track 7. Now, when I get out of this song, and what I've heard from the guys on interviews and certain sources, I've heard that this song is about the media essentially bleeding people dry and putting people against each other. Again, Eddie Vedder really coming out with thoughtful and smart lyrical content all throughout this record. I cannot overstate that enough. This continues the momentum of Go and Animal as this very fast, punky, almost metal sounding in spots. Especially towards the end where Eddie Vedder's just screaming blood, it's my blood. It's just very passionate, very aggro. All the qualities I love about this album. But not angry for the sake of being angry. He's angry because he has something to say. And that's the difference between something like, some music that's out there that's more angry, but they don't have a reason to be angry. Eddie Vedder and company had a reason to be angry. And to me, that's the difference between that kind of stuff, that kind of music, that's angry without having any kind of passion or meaning behind it, and something like Pearl Jam where they actually had a reason to be angry. It's more believable and just comes off as more genuine to me. He says, roll me over, like Rolling Stone, and he says, fucking circus, like Circus Magazine. But he alludes it like he's not essentially talking about the magazine, but the song is about media, so it leads me to believe he's talking about those music publications as well, and he's putting that and grouping that together with media, because at the time, magazines were the main format besides TV of how you would find out about music, which to me is utterly brilliant and great lyric writing from Eddie Vedder. And after that amazing kick in the teeth, we get right to track 8, Rearview Mirror. Now, this song is more of a mid-paced track. It has more of a consistent, steady drum beat. It's not too heavy, not a ballad. It's a nice little cruising track to break the mood from Blood going into the next track. I get a story of a guy just leaving all the crap that he's had to deal with in his life and leaving it behind him. Like, I see you in my rearview mirror. I can see things clearer now that you're in my rearview mirror. Just some guy. It's almost like Into the Wild, which would come out about 15 years after this album came out. But essentially, it's almost like the story of Into the Wild, where the guy just wants to leave everything behind and just live a different kind of lifestyle. Now, I did say this song was more of a mid-tempo pace, but that's kind of a lie, because around the end of the song, the last 30 seconds or so, it gets kind of speedy. And in my mind, I see that as the guy is speeding off away from his issues. Like, you can just feel the guy just going off and just getting away from everything. And again, it's brilliant. And the mood is broken up even further, because after this track, we get the amazing and funky Rats. Essentially, this song, in a nutshell, is Eddie Vedder comparing the human race to rats, and how rats work together to solve their problems, and human beings have been at war and fighting off and on for many years. And I think that, again, it's brilliant and just extremely smart of him just writing these lyrics, and it's kind of true, even today. And I think this song and Rearview Mirror are two excellent tracks to break up the mood and the more heaviness of this album, heaviosity, as I think Jeff Ament put it back in one of an interview from a few years ago. He said that Versus was the album they want to get their heaviosity out, and they definitely get their heaviosity out on this record. But I love how Rearview Mirror and Rats really break up the tone without really changing much of the lyrical content. They're still very biting and heavy. There's no like happy-go-lucky song on this record to stick out like a sore thumb. Every track just runs so smooth together. And then after Rats, we get a more retrospective and more kind of beyond his years kind of track from Eddie Vedder. Elderly Woman Behind a Counter in a Small Town. One of the longest song titles I've seen. I've seen longer than this, believe it or not, but this is one of the longest. This is like emo song title kind of deal. They were doing it before any of them, the emo guys were doing it in the early 2000s, because they were kind of being edgy and like, oh, look at our song titles, they're long as hell. It's like Pearl Jam did it first. But this song is amazing. Again, very different for this album. It's a straight up acoustic ballad. Doesn't get heavy, doesn't get any kind of really solos or anything. There's nothing really. It's just a great acoustic ballad. A little folky in places too. You have a little twangy guitar in between the chorus and the verses. It's just a beautiful song. And believe it or not, even though this is one of the ballads, this is one of my favorite songs on this album. It just sounds beautiful. I love the acoustics. I love the lyrics about basically living in a small town, and if you live in a small town, essentially, then you're going to die in that small town. And the elderly woman behind the small counter in a small town, she kind of is the whole theme, the centerpiece of that song, essentially, because she never went away and grew out of that town. She lived in that town her whole entire life, and she stayed there and worked in that tiny store. So to me, she's the epicenter of the whole track. And I think Eddie Vedder is singing from his perspective, where he got out of that town, and some of those people that he met along the way, he's like, oh, hey, how is it going? You know, he's basically saying, oh, hey, it's been so long. I never thought I'd see you again. I was graduating from high school. So a lot of my friends were going away. They're going to college, or they're going to start having families, and I didn't see any of them. Still to this day, I don't really see too many people. I see people at my work once in a while, but I don't hang out with them anymore. You know, it's like this song speaks to me on a personal level because of just how it just came into me at a different time in my life. Again, graduating from high school, the song is perfect for that. Song and this album just means so much to me on a personal level. The next song on here, Leash, ramps up the heaviness tenfold. This song's all about youthful rebellion and energy and just saying like, yeah, we are young, we're not going to listen to you. It's so anti-authority. Leash, drop the leash. Like, you can't control me. I am young. We are young. We're in this together. And I love the line where he's like, get out of my fucking face! And he's like yelling that out. Almost like Peter Pan in Wonderland almost, where it's like they're just together in this world and Captain Hook is the authority. It's almost like a song version of that, but just taking place in the 90s, where everyone's wearing flannel shirts and the cut-up jeans. And it's just such a representation of that time. But wait, we're not done yet. We still have the finale, track 12, the amazing and just beautiful Indifference. This song is played with a stand-up bass throughout the whole song, and it sounds like Eddie is singing this in a dark room. Like he's singing to you in a dark room. He's lighting a candle. He's like face to face with his lover or someone that he's talking to, and all he sees is the fire crackling off their face. And this song is very much an imagining kind of song. You close your eyes, you can imagine Eddie in this room with the candle, and then the girl he's talking to, or the lover, or whoever he's talking to in the room. I can almost picture it like he's sitting on wooden chairs and a wooden table. He's got this like old-timey, like thick, long candle, and he lights it. And it's just beautiful. I will scream my lungs out until it fills this room. I'll swallow poison until I grow immune. I love one of the lines where he's saying, I'll hold a candle until it burns down my arm. And then one of my favorite lines where he says, I'll spread out my arms and pretend like I'm free to roam. Like saying, like, I'm not free, but I'll go outside and just spread my arms and just run around. It's just, it really gets you. The song really gets you with a closing track. It leaves you wanting more, but at the same time, you're satisfied with what you got, because you had just listened to essentially 11 tracks or 10 tracks of just heavy aggro, just mosh, punk, grunge, metal music. But you have this track that just ends off, and it's so lovely. And one of the trends I loved about the 90s, at least the early 90s, was a lot of bands would have the penultimate track, the track before the ending track, be this heavy song that would get you in the mood, be fired up. But then the last song would be a ballad track that would just be very atmospheric and very morose. An example is Nirvana's Nevermind. On a Plane is the penultimate track, but then it ends with Something in the Way, which most people will now know that song from The Batman that just came out a few months ago. That song is sprinkled throughout the movie. And it's another great ballad, kind of atmospheric track to end an album. But to me, Indifference blows it away. Blows it clean off. It's just the stand-up bass, some of the more twinkly guitar tones that are spread throughout the background. It just adds so much atmosphere. I could almost imagine Eddie playing an acoustic guitar halfway through the song, or playing a little guitar medley, little twingly in the background, if you will. Maybe singing a song to this girl halfway through the actual song. It's just gorgeous. If I had to describe this song in one word, gorgeous. Alright, with that being said, that was my review for Pearl Jam's Versus, and why I believe that is a perfect Zen. Now let me know in the comments below, what do you guys think of Versus? Is it your favorite Pearl Jam record? Have you not listened to it before? If not, go listen to it right now after this video ends, because it's one of the best albums of the 90s. As much as I love 10, this album takes that and just kicks up to 11. And now, of course, my recommended format, if you want to go listen to this record, is on vinyl record. Pick up the 2011 reissues. They did the first, 4 or 5 records of Pearl Jam on this legacy label through vinyl. So I'd pick them up. If you're a CD guy, they also came out with the CD in 2011. Or if you're a CD girl, either way. If you're someone who just uses Spotify, Apple Music, it's on Spotify, Apple Music, it's on Tidal. It's everywhere you can find music. There's no excuse as to why you can't listen to this record. As much as I love Sum 41 and Does Look Infected and Californication, my other 2 Perfect Zen videos, this is probably the epitome of a perfect Zen. Because every song has a meaning. Every song is different. It's heavy, it's forceful. Everybody in the band is playing at 100%. Eddie Vedder is screaming, he's passionate. With everything that's going on in the early 90s, this is kind of a product of its time, but at the same time, while 10 is a grunge album through and through, this album takes what they were doing on 10 and they start adding different influences. So you have funk on here, you have some jazz influence, you have metal, punk, a little bit of everything on this record. So if you love 10, but you want something a little bit more diverse without getting too silly like they would get in the future, I would definitely pick up Versus from Pearl Jam. And that's why I think it is a perfect Zen. Thank you all, and have a great day. And remember to keep meditating through vinyl.